You're tuning into The Josh Bernstein Show, where liberalism is a mental disorder. And Josh is the cure.
Welcome back to the program. Before we get to our guest, we're going to talk a little bit later on to Ramon Michael, who is an Assyrian Christian who has been persecuted, even had his father murdered under the Ottoman Empire in the early 1900s. He himself escaped in the early 70s from the Baathists. So this is someone that knows firsthand about persecution of Christians. We're going to be joined by him a little bit later on in the program to talk about the immigration attorney that is being indicted by the Obama administration for immigration fraud. For doing what? For helping Christians, Assyrian Christians. So we're going to talk to him about the case and plight of Robert de Caleta a little bit later on in the program. But before we get into all that, I want to roll this clip. Go ahead and roll this clip.
I wrote a book in 2000. It's called Rich Dad's Prophecy, and I predicted there would be a crash coming in 2016. So I was like 15 years out, 16 years out, and it looks like it's going to happen in 2016. But I also predicted in Rich Dad's Prophecy, the same book, so there would be a major crash between 2000 and 2016, and that crash occurred in November of 2007 when the Dow reversed direction, and the U.S. officially went into a bear market in December of 2007, which was followed by the crash of Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns, AIG, and the whole derivatives market. So the average person without financial education thinks it was a real estate crash. It wasn't a real estate crash. It was a debt derivatives crash, mortgage-backed securities. So it wasn't real estate. It was these exotic, what I call financial instruments. Back in 2007, there was 700 trillion in derivatives. Guess how much there is today?
I don't know.
1.2 quadrillion in derivatives.
Wow.
So what they're talking about in the next crash is going to be twice as bad as the last crash of 2007.
So Gary, Donald Trump is saying essentially what you're saying. Be careful, be careful, be careful. What's wrong with that?
Neil, after 8 or 9 years of 0% interest rates, $15 to $20 trillion of printed money, now negative rates, countries buying up their stock and bond markets. What do we have for it? Massive debt explosions around the globe, and here, supposedly the same country in the world, we're at 1% GDP and predictions for this quarter, less than 1%. I don't think it's a reach to think that we could be on the precipice. One never knows, but with all that easy money, that's all we have for it. I think there could be a lot of trouble lying ahead.
But, you know,
now, as you can see from this clip, I picked a segment from an interview that I did with Rich Dad, Poor Dad author, real estate mogul, and very rich billionaire, billionaire, Robert Kiyosaki. He is the author of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series. Well, I interviewed him late last year, and he predicted on my show that there was going to be a major downturn in the economy and a major or recession that was coming in 2016. He also rightly pointed out the one in 2008, and now he's pointing out this next one as well. Now, recently Donald Trump made the news by saying that there's going to be a massive recession on the horizon. Lots of economists said he's crazy, they don't know what he's talking about, it doesn't make any sense. You know, we're doing great, the job market's looking good, everything's, you know, everyone's blowing fairy dust here. The reality is that Donald Trump is correct, and so is Robert Kiyosaki, okay? I'm going to go through 14 points right now that will show you all how and why we are on the verge of an imploding economy, unfortunately, once again. Now, I'm going to use certain aggregators that can determine how the economy is going to work and how it's not going to work. U.S. factory orders, S&P earnings, corporate debt defaults, U.S. oil rigs, job announcement cuts, credit card debt, existing home sales, subprime auto loan defaults, Restaurant Performance Index, and of course, lower pay wages, the destabilization of the overall debt of our country, the national debt, and of course, the labor participation rates. So let's talk about these 14 aggregators. Number one, U.S. factory orders have declined for 16 straight months in a row. Number two, total business sales have fallen 5% since 2014. If you remember in the last show that I did, I talked about how there's 18 million less small businesses in America from 2008 to 2016. The S&P 500 earnings have now fallen a total of 18.5% since 2014. Number four, corporate debt defaults are at their highest levels since 2009. Number five, the U.S. oil rig count just hit a 41-year low. Number six, 51 oil and gas drillers in North America have filed for bankruptcy since the beginning of last year alone. Okay? Number seven, job cut announcements by major firms in the U.S. were up 32% during the first quarter of 2016 compared to the first quarter of 2015. Consumers in the United States have accumulated more new credit card debt during the last quarter of 2015 than they did in all of 2009, 2010, and 2011 combined. People are using their credit cards at a faster rate than in all of those 3 years combined. Number nine, existing home sales in the United States are now down 7.1%, the biggest decline since the market crashes of 2009. 10, subprime auto loan delinquencies have hit their highest level since 2009. The Restaurant Performance Index in the United States recently dropped to the lowest level since 2008. Now, a lot of that can be done and can be attributed to the fact of $15 an hour in California, $15 an hour in Seattle, Washington. We saw the restaurants all going out of business because of that as well, and quite frankly, because of the state of the economy. These are luxury items when you go out to eat for the most part, so people are doing it less. So that's a big indicator of how the market and the economy is doing. And then, of course, 95 million people not participating in the workforce. That is the highest amount since October of 1977. Our national debt is close to $20 trillion. When you add in unfunded liabilities, you have now cleared $100 trillion in total debt. Astronomical. And then this one will really bite you all in the butt. 51% of all American workers make less than $30,000 a year. Think about that. 51% of everybody that has a job in America makes less than $30,000 a year, yet our medical costs have skyrocketed to the highest levels that we've seen in the past 35 to 40 years. So when anyone tells you somehow that the economy is doing great, that it's just humming along nicely, tell them they need to get an examination and they need to have their head examined, because we are headed, unfortunately, to a major, major fall. And these are the aggregate indicators that you need to understand and worry about. Now, when is it going to happen? I don't know. It could just about be starting right about now. It could start in the next couple of months. I don't know. But I can tell you this. It is directly because of Barack Obama and his policies, and Obamacare, scaring people out of hiring full-time workers, taking over 1/5 of the economy, raising taxes, our corporate tax rates, the highest in the civilized world. We took in more tax revenue this last year than we have in the past couple of years. The debt, I mean, it's out of control. The spending is out of control. Now, you can blame some of it on George W. Bush because he did spend like a Democrat. But I'm sorry, you can't do it anymore. Barack Obama's been president, unfortunately, for 8 years. He owns it, and it's time for us now to change it and try to get it back to where we once were before this. Remember, when Barack Obama took office, the national debt was $10.6 trillion. It is now close to $20 trillion. Unbelievable. We'll be right back with Ramon Michael.
You're tuning into the Josh Bernstein Show, where Josh covers the news the way the liberal media would not dare.
Hey, Josh Bernstein here. If you like that segment, please tune in to the full show at starworldwidenetworks.com. Again, starworldwidenetworks.com. Look for the Josh Bernstein Show, or you can also find me on YouTube. I appreciate you guys watching.